All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Now, today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite books of all time, and that is City of Golden Shadow, book #1 in the Otherland series by Tad Williams. We got two versions here. We've got the original first edition hardcover, and then we've got a little mass market paperback. And these came out in 1996. Gosh, I hope I can do these books justice with this review. I mean, these are, like I said, this is one of my favorite writers. One of my favorite series of all time, and it's so complex and so well written and so gorgeously written and so detailed that I don't know if I'm even going to be able to, the whole series, the scope of the whole series is just vast. Anyway, let's talk about the covers first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. And so we've got this great illustration by Michael Wherein, who did the covers for the rest of them. Books 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, the hardcover is very elegantly done. And now I put these plastic slip covers on them. But it sparkles like a city of golden shadow, like the title says. And then it's got a great spine with the little icon on it. And then on the back, we've got the author photo. The paperback is similar. But what I like about the series is you put them all together and they look like they belong together. And then with the spines facing like this, you can see that there's a consistent flow and design. So they all look beautiful on the shelf. Even the paperbacks, the publisher Daw Books did a good job of making sure that the paperbacks all looked like they belonged on the shelf. So overall, it's just a really cool set of books. So we're going to give the covers, both the paperback version and the hardcover versions, we're going to give them a smashing 10 out of 10 score. Anyway, let's set these back up so we can see them, because they're so beautiful. Each one of them is better than the next. So let us talk about this book here. Oh, there's one other thing that I wanted to show you. And that was, I consider Tad Williams a friend of mine. In fact, Tad Williams, on my own novels, Tad Williams was kind enough to give me a blurb, if you know what that is, on my books. I consider him a good friend, and he has signed every one of my books. And on this one, he particularly wrote, "Perhaps my favorite of my own novels." That's what he wrote. Perhaps my favorite of my own novels. Which means a lot, because, this guy's written a lot of stuff. Well, it's all right here somewhere. It's all behind us. Otherland. He wrote Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. He wrote the Shadow March books. He's written a lot. 20-some-odd books. All big, huge, fat, honking things like this. Anyway, we haven't even gotten to the review yet. Okay, let's get to that. Okay, so what is this about? It's a virtual reality. This came out in 1996. I think the second one came out in 98, like 2001, 2003. I can't remember when they all came out. But they were all in the late 90s, early 2000s that these things came out. Virtual reality. It was kind of a big deal back then. And it's becoming, back then we didn't really know what to expect from it. So this was Tad Williams, best guess of what it might look like in about the year 2050. Because this book is set in the future in the year 2050. And it's about a virtual reality place where people can go, kind of like Ready Player One. This is really kind of a more complex and well-written Ready Player One, without all of the 80s nostalgia references, which made Ready Player One a pretty cool thing. But this is way better than Ready Player One by a long shot. This is, I kind of also compare this a lot to The Dark Tower by Stephen King, just because of all of the different landscapes that the characters adventure through in both The Dark Tower and Tad Williams' Otherland. And we'll get into that a little bit. It starts out with a great prologue set during World War One with a character named Paul Jonas. And right from the get-go, we see Tad Williams' brilliant prose just right out of the gate as he describes this scene straight out of the horror and the trenches of World War One, and these soldiers, and how this is sort of like a fever dream. It's like you understand that things aren't all as they seem as this soldier sort of adventures through this World War One landscape, and different weird things start to sort of manifest themselves in this landscape. One of which is like a tree that is so high he can't see the top of it, and he begins to climb it like a Jack and the Beanstalk type of thing. But anyway, he gets up, and we understand that this guy Paul Jonas is probably inside. He's probably in the virtual reality, but it's so real that Paul Jonas doesn't realize he's in it. Now we jump to the main story after that. Well, that's kind of is the main story, but it's, holy gosh, like I said, this is so many plot threads in these books that it's, and all interwoven so brilliantly. And anyway, so when I was talking with Tad Williams one night, he was saying, he told me that he wanted to do this virtual reality series because it was going to give him the opportunity to write everything he'd ever wanted to write and keep it in one story. Every idea that he'd ever had, he could put into one story because he could have his characters in these virtual reality settings, whether it was mystery, space opera, police procedural, straight up anime, cartoonish stuff, ancient Egypt settings, or horror novel settings, or serial killer things going on, or even World War One settings. He could put Old West, Neanderthals. I mean, it's all kind of jammed into here. And that's the tip of the iceberg of really all of the landscapes that Tad Williams has his characters go through once they enter the virtual reality to solve a specific mystery within the virtual reality. Like I said, it's much like Ready Player One, only 4 huge, massive books. And although I loved Ready Player One, I loved Ready Player One for different reasons. And I think it was because of the light, breezy, fast-paced 80s nostalgia that was just bludgeoning you over the head one after the next. This one I love because Tad Williams really, really gets into the nitty-gritty of what entering a virtual reality system might actually look like, and what kind of criminal activities and crime syndicates and evil people could be in the reality. At the same time they're hunting you in reality, they can be hunting you in real life. And there's some cool characters that he comes up with, like Renee, our main protagonist, her little friend Zabu, the South African guy who doesn't know much about technology and is learning. He's kind of the eyes. Zabu is sort of the eyes that we see through, because Renee has to explain to him, and it's a great storytelling technique, is having someone who knows nothing, like Zabu, straight off of the plains of Africa, who knows nothing about technology much or anything, and he's getting explained to him step by step this whole virtual reality system, and by Renee. And once they enter it, she has to walk him through how to navigate the virtual reality and not get himself into too much trouble and not wander off at all and look at all the sparkly, shiny objects. And then we've got Christabel, who's a young girl, and then Dredd, one of my favorite characters, who's kind of like the serial killer, assassin type character in this. Paul Jonas, of course, that I mentioned, our World War II soldier. Orlando and Frederick, who start out as a barbarian and a thief. They start out in this book in a virtual reality setting that's much like Dungeons and Dragons, and Orlando is the barbarian and Fredericks is the thief. And then we've got others like Martine and everything like that. But what's going on, the main thrust of the plot is Renee's younger brother has been going to places on the web in the virtual reality realm that he shouldn't be going to. and there's some bad people that are sort of kidnapping kids out of this. I mean, it's like they're kidnapping the kids in the virtual reality realm, and then the kids can't escape, and then they're just stuck as comatose. They're just stuck in comas, and while they're being used within the virtual reality. And so Renee has to launch herself onto this quest. She has to go into the virtual reality to save her brother, and it takes 4 books to do so. And the adventure is just wacky, crazy, wild, energetic, the imaginative, is so imaginative. Every scene, everything, and all the characters that are sort of on this kind of quest with Renee within the virtual reality. It's just absolutely fantastic. And I wanted to read to you the in the paperback they give a brief sketch of some of the characters, which also gives us an idea of what this book is about. So Renee Sulloway is our main character. She's a teacher, and the backbone of her family. Proud of her African heritage, she has fought all her life simply to get by. She has never wanted to be a hero, but when her younger brother is struck down by his bizarre and mysterious illness, Renee swears to save him. When people around her begin to die, she realizes she may have stumbled onto something she is not meant to know. A terrifying secret from which there is no turning back. In other words, they have to go into Otherland and find the city of Golden Shadow to save her brother. Zabu, he is a bushman, come to the city to learn the skills which may save the spirit of his tribe. With the heart of a poet and the soul of a shaman, he will journey with Renee on this quest into the very heart of darkness. And it does. Parts of this virtual reality get pretty grim and pretty dark. Paul Jonas is lost, seemingly adrift in space and time, as he flees from the bloody battlefields of World War I to a castle in the sky, and onward, to lands beyond imagining. He must not only evade his terrifying pursuers, but solve the terrible riddle of his own identity. So Paul Jonas is this character that doesn't realize he's in virtual reality. He's kind of lost, he's sort of trapped, and he's slowly starting to figure out that things ain't what they seem. 14-year-old Orlando, also known as the invincible barbarian Thargor, but only in his imagination, only in virtual reality. Youth and frailty are not enough. Anyway, he's even though one of the reasons Orlando likes to go into the VR realm is because he is kind of a weak young boy and he can play a barbarian, and who wouldn't want that? I'm not even a weak young boy, and I wouldn't mind playing a barbarian. Mr. Sellers, a strange old man on a military base, a prisoner of both the government and his own body. Maybe the greatest mystery of all. Is he part of the Grail Brotherhood? And the Grail Brotherhood is the evil cabal that is sort of, may or may not be manipulating this virtual reality place where all of the people on the planet really use it. And all of the people on the planet use it to fulfill their fantasies, much like Westworld. It's like Westworld! Anyway, does he oppose the Grail Brotherhood, or is he the puppet master, the center of a vast web? Does he have ambitions of his own? Only the answers will be found in Otherland. So that's kind of a pretty good sketch of some of our main characters. It's just an absolute magnificent story. I've read each book, I bet 5 times, and I reread this one over the span of about a week. I was reading about 50 pages a day and just drinking in. And I was really sort of, God, every time I reread this, I find something new. This is one of those puzzles within puzzles, riddles within riddles, red herrings within red herrings, adventure novels that just never lets up on the gas. And when Tad Williams says it's his most favorite thing he's ever written, I get it. I mean, my most favorite thing that Tad Williams wrote was the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy, which is right there. But I can see why Tad would really have fondness for this. I have fondness for it. I think it's perfect. So I obviously would give Otherland, City of Golden Shadow, book number 1 of Otherland. I give it a absolute 10 out of 10. And if I could score it higher than that, I would.